Hi, everybody. Dylan here. I figured since this was the last episode of On Screen that I'd be a part of, I would do something special for this week's episode. No comedy, just me bearing my soul to everybody that's watching. I'm going to be playing a version of one of the most classic songs in cinema history, Somewhere Over the Rainbow from the famed Wizard of Oz, but a version of it that appeared on an episode of Scrubs, so combining film and television together in one masterful harmony. Go something a little like this. So
Hello and welcome to the series finale of On Screen. I'm your host Dylan Wright, and I'm here to take you on a final journey through film and television. Well, it's that time, everybody. The end of On Screen as we know it is here. This is going to be the last podcast that I myself am hosting for the Woodward, so it's a bit of a bittersweet moment for me. And I thought, what better topic to cover for the last episode than series finales, the end of shows that people have come to love. Hopefully, On Screen might be that for some of you, but if not, I completely understand. But let's talk about television series finales. I originally was going to have this episode be a top 5 list about my favorite series finales and why I think that they're good and why they deserve the list. But I want this episode to be spoiler-free. I want this to be an episode that anybody can listen to because it's an important milestone, I think, in my podcasting career. This is the first podcast I've ever done, and I want this to be enjoyed by anybody that wants to listen to it. So I'm not going to go into detail about these finales. I'm just going to talk about what makes a good finale, what makes closure, what gives closure to people. Closure is probably the most important part to have in a finale. You need some kind of wrap-up that ties up some loose ends, maybe not all of them, but makes sure that the characters are in a place that audiences would feel comfortable seeing them in. For instance, in the Office finale, we see the different characters of Dunder Mifflin in lives that the audience could picture them being in, that we could see, okay, I definitely can see Kelly being in this position, or I can see Jim and Pam in this position. So it's good to give the audience some kind of closure in that sense. It doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect ending for a character. Obviously, an evil character can get their comeuppance, a good character can triumph in the end, but sometimes it's an unsatisfying ending for a reason. Some shows that people saw as unsatisfying for finales are like Seinfeld, how the characters end up in that show. I think it's perfect for them. I think that it's the culmination of their actions throughout the seasons, but some people don't agree. Some people like seeing their characters get away scot-free. But closure in some form is definitely very important for series finales. Another really important thing is looking at what came before and acknowledging it, and that includes the mistakes and that includes the highs of the show. You don't want to just bury your head in the sand about things that didn't quite work. For instance, the Angel series finale brings back a character that many people thought didn't work in the show, but they had to acknowledge it because the show wouldn't be really a complete picture if they didn't acknowledge this character. And it should be a celebration, basically, of what came before, what led to this moment. We should see character arcs, coming to a head, reflection from characters. I'm not necessarily talking a clip show. Some shows do a clip show, but usually it's not considered the season finale. But something to remind the audience of the journey that both the creators of the show and the audience have taken together with this show. And sometimes that journey can be a really fun one in terms of a comedy, and sometimes it could be a really tumultuous one in terms of a drama. Like in Breaking Bad, we have an exploration of these different characters that have been affected by this storyline and what's going to happen to them, what may happen to them. Some characters, their fates are left up in the air, and some characters have very definitive fate laid out for them. And it's really interesting to see where you think each of these characters can go. Because if the show wraps itself up in a neat little bow, it's not really that satisfying because there's no real chance of exploring what happens after because the story's over. The ending has happened. There's no use thinking about these characters as characters. They're like in a storybook that you just closed. Whereas a lot of good finales leave it open-ended in a lot of areas. They make it so that, hey, these characters are still going to keep on living after this show. Like, they still exist. They're still in this universe. And the universe is going to keep on turning even though we've stopped looking at it. And I think that's a really comforting thing for audiences to see, is that the world will keep on turning. Things will keep on happening in this universe, and these characters that you've grown to love and cherish and be a part of for all of these years, they're going to keep on living. They're going to keep on keeping on, for lack of a better term. They're going to keep going, and I think it's really important for an audience to see that that's the case. Another really important thing for a finale to do is to showcase the characters one last time, give each character a last hurrah of some kind of character spanning dialogue, or maybe like a wink to the first line of a show that they were in or something like that, just to let the audience know, hey, we know it's a show, we know you care about this character, and we want this journey to have been worth it. Because that's ultimately what a good finale should be, is that, was me investing all this time and energy and love into this show worth it? If the answer is yes, then the finale has done its job well. If the answer is no, well, the finale maybe is lacking, and maybe the show itself might have been lacking. There's a good example of a show that they should have ended on a certain episode, but they decided to keep going another season, and that's Scrubs. There was an episode in season 8 that was the end of the season that was basically a finale for the show. It wrapped everything up really nicely. There was even like a curtain call of sorts as a character's walking down the hall of the hospital, and you see all the characters appearing from the past seasons. And it was a really just touching tribute to the show. But then they decided to keep on going for another season, and the magic of that episode was lost. You don't want to lose the magic of a finale. For instance, Twin Peaks. A lot of people thought that the show was done after the second season back in the 90s. It ended on a giant cliffhanger. It was a moment that a lot of people were like, wait, what happens next? And there wasn't a lot of closure in it, and it left a lot of people uncomfortable. But it was good in terms of Twin Peaks is a show about making people uncomfortable. It's about the digging in underneath the surface of something that's looks idyllic and quaint, and finding something dark and sinister under it. And I think that the finale really summed that up pretty well. But David Lynch decided to do a movie that was a prequel, but also kind of a sequel, because David Lynch is weird. And then he decided to do a miniseries, which has an even more confusing finale. So in that terms, it lessens the blow of the original finale. But in doing so, it also creates a pretty good alternate finale in terms of the series itself, because let me tell you, don't get into Twin Peaks unless you really want your head to spin. That's all I got to say about that. But back to finales. The show deserves a good send-off. Any show. It doesn't matter if you were there for one season or there for many seasons, 9 seasons, 10, whatever. Somebody somewhere has invested time in this show. Somebody somewhere has decided that this show was going to be their be-all, end-all. This is what they were going to spend their Wednesday nights watching. And you need to make that person feel like, yes, okay, I know that people are paying attention, and I know that this is worth it. And you need to let that person know that they're loved. It sounds really corny and cliche, but the finale allows closure to a person that has basically the show's become a family to them. There's a lot of shows that never got the due ending that they deserved. There's a lot of shows out there, many. And there are some people out there that have been left wanting, that have been left empty, basically. And the important thing is that you really need to give somebody this. You owe them for investing their time into it. And it sounds selfish as a television watcher to say that, but sometimes these shows mean the world to people, and media in general means the world to a lot of people. Some people grow up and learn from what they see on television, and there's a responsibility there for creators that they're shaping the future in a way. People are going to watch these kinds of shows and see, this is how I should act, this is how I should handle these situations. And some people might be inspired into different careers thanks to television. Like maybe say you grew up watching Grey's Anatomy for some reason, and that show inspires you to become a doctor. Or say you watch a show like Rescue Me or Chicago Fire, and that inspires you to become a fireman. Or say you watch a show like Mad Men, and that inspires you to become an advertising agent. I don't know why, but these shows mean something to people. No matter how silly you think this your concept is, somebody somewhere is gonna find that show, and it's gonna mean the world to them. And you might not experience that person, you may never meet them, but they're there, and you help shape them. And the finale is almost like a thesis statement in a way. What am I trying to get out of the show, and why did we deserve all your time all these years? So that's what a good finale should do. It should tell the person that, yes, this journey was worth it. So that's going to be it for the final episode of On Screen. I want to thank everybody for listening all of these many episodes and these couple years. I want to thank all of my editors across the board for putting up with all of my pauses and different mess ups. I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to talk about something that I really feel strongly about and passionate about. And if you listened, I'm glad you did. I'm glad that we took this journey together, and it's been a good one. So until next time, take care.
That was probably one of the most emotional performances I've ever done. Jess, please don't soprano this.